Hey folks, John Yarrington here, CEO of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a 501c6 not-for-profit trade association dedicated to promoting, protecting, and advancing the direct-to-consumer and direct response advertising industries. It's my pleasure to welcome you to yet another exciting and fun-filled episode of PDMI's Take 20, brought to you by the Brand Response Council. These quick-hitting 20-minute live conversations featuring industry leaders and discussing trending topics are scheduled twice monthly. Before we get started, I want to point out that a little housekeeping here. You can ask questions all you want during this process. All you have to use is the questions tab. I located on the control panel. Just know that we're going to hold all questions to the end of the episode. So let's get started, folks. We're diving into episode number 2 of a three-part series on the state of media. Content drives consumer choice. I'd like to take a moment to introduce today's host, the fearless Chris Foster, Vice President of New Business Development at Modern Postcard, a national direct marketing company that services businesses of all sizes and in all markets. Chris is also the chair of the Brand Response Council. He has 2 guests today, longtime media experts, Heather Molina, Vice President, Cross-Channel Marketing, Red Door Interactive, and Kyle Patten, Vice President of Direct Response at Univision Communications. Thank you all for joining us today, and Chris, take us away.
Excellent. Well, happy holidays, everyone. Yes, this is the last Take 20 of the year. Appreciate everybody's engagement, especially the panelists. And thank you, Kyle and Heather, for joining us today. The topic today, like John was talking about, is the changing landscape of content and media consumption. So before, especially when I was younger, I might go to TV. Hey, what's on TV? Click. Cruise through cable channels to see what's on. And then it's like, well, let's see what's on Netflix. Let's see what's on Amazon. I don't know what I want to, but let's go find out and discover. But now specific content is becoming the magnet to bring a user in. We go to find where the Queen's Gambit is. Or we seek out where Wonder Woman 1984 is going to start streaming. Not necessarily what channel or platform it's going to be on. A lot of this, I think, happened over time. It's a natural progression of consumer behaviors, but it really came to the forefront in July when Disney Plus launched Hamilton, drove up subscriptions like crazy cakes, and the genesis and almost the footpaths to what's happening now with Time Warner and what they'll do in 2021 with co-releases of all their major properties, both in theaters and at HBO Max simultaneously. Is this a trend to continue and develop? Will users eventually go to a pay-per-view with specific content they want to watch instead of subscriptions? And add to that a new generation of viewers that are growing up without a TV. It's a screen, it's not a TV. And instead consuming material whenever, wherever, and however they want. The entire concept of a non-live broadcast program only being available at a certain time and on a certain channel, well, that's dissolving and fading away. What will take its place? I'm old enough to remember way back in the Wayback Machine, there was a show called Batman. It was a TV show with Burt Ward. And at the end of the broadcast, we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. That does not exist anymore. No one's going to do that. They're going to want to watch it whenever, wherever, and however they want to watch it. So we're looking forward to the conversation of the changing landscape of content and consumer choice. Kyle, I'd love to start with you in Univision. You have a very unique perspective about the changing consumer patterns. So I would ask you, especially this last year, what has surprised you most with the change of consumer consumption?
Well, thanks, Chris, and thanks, Heather, for having me. When it comes to, real content consumption, especially on the Hispanic side, linear does still get the lion's share of the audience. I mean, you're looking at age 28 for the average age of a Hispanic and 43 for non-Hispanic. But what we've seen specifically is more Hispanics consuming more digital content. And, they're over-indexing on many of the digital platforms. They're consuming on tablets, phones, desktop, smart TV, all CTV devices. They're highly mobile and they're always consuming. And we have our YouNow platform, which has done incredibly well. And we're also launching an AVOD product starting next year. So we're giving Hispanics, more content to consume. I mean, just the pandemic alone, we saw huge spikes of our content being consumed. And I think it just follows the trend versus US. I mean, you're seeing, you know, everybody right now is talking about streaming. And I feel like almost, you know, every other week we hear about, you know, a major company launching a new streaming product. And why? It's because, well, like that's where the eyeballs are going. And you think about almost 20 plus years ago, you know, Blockbuster was a $6 billion company. And Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, the founders of Netflix, went to visit them. And, you know, they weren't laughed out of the room for what they saw as their vision. But I mean, you see now that Netflix is really the leader in SVOD. But with Disney, you know, right behind them, at almost, you know, you see what happened to the stock price of Disney when they announced how many more subs that they had. I mean, they're up to 90 million subs, and stock price went up almost 15%. So you see that the content and the subscriptions are really driving these companies. And Netflix alone was supposed to spend close to $20 billion in content this year, which is absurd. Is because why? They want to keep the consumer coming back. When you log on to Netflix, when you log on to Disney, you know that you're going to be seeing great content. It could even be something that you've seen before, but you know, you might even watch again. It could be a series, it could be a documentary, it could be something for the kids, but they always keep you coming back. And you know, everybody's kind of wanting to get in on this. And I don't think it's necessarily a streaming wars. What I will say though is, you know, we're in an economic downturn at times. You know, some of the discretionary spending could be some of the streaming products that, you know, people might be able to live without. So I guess I'll kind of wrap it up as I've kind of, hopefully I've answered your question, but I still think it really is subscriptions that, you know, really drive these companies. And but it also comes down to just good content. You know, Disney, Netflix, even Discovery Plus just launched. Actually, they're starting in January, I believe. You know, they have non-reality content that will always find a niche. And HBO Max, you know, you see how they release all their theatricals. So the only thing I want to kind of, as far as the HBO, and is, I don't, you know, some of these artists like a Christopher Nolan that, you know, came out with Tenet, they did Dark Knight, Inception, is, you know, they want a theatrical release. So, you know, years down the line, I don't know if people will eventually go back to the movie theater. I think they will. You know, as much as the great experience from home is, you know, you're watching in your own home and you can use your own bathroom and make your own popcorn. But there's still something to be said about when you go to the movies and you turn your phone off for 2 hours and you're watching, you know, in IMAX, you're watching in a very comfortable chair, and you're watching a great viewing experience. So I think, you know, I think it's going to keep evolving, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So
that was a great answer, Kyle. I appreciated that a lot, because you touched on a couple of themes that I'd like to push over to Heather. Is that there's so much content right now, and the folks at Netflix are pretty smart. So if they're investing $20 billion in content, they think people are going to show up, right? They think that's a good investment. Eric Duggins from NPR is a media reporter. He's calling this the golden age of television. We won't debate the word television because we did that last 2 weeks ago, but it's a golden age of content, right? So Heather, I guess I would ask you, with the competition of streaming services now, does that lift all boats in terms of consumer behavior seeking out more streaming?
Absolutely. I mean, it's providing more opportunity to expand and for consumers to expand what it is that they are viewing and what it is that they could potentially be interested in. I think more excitingly, at least from the streaming service side, like a Disney Plus, like an HBO Max, and especially like a Netflix, who has been on this and really smart for a very freaking long time about it. It all comes down to that data. And what I love thinking about myself is, because Kyle talked a little bit about it, like you log onto your Netflix queue, you're going to see great content because they have an algorithm that is programmed to look at what it is you've viewed in the past, what it is other people's, or as we call them, the Facebook media buying world, those lookalike audiences, people similar to you, what they are viewing. And so they're able to curate this, and I hate the word curate because it's used so much lately, but they're able to curate these experiences for you, which people are finding so attractive, so useful, so efficient with how they want to consume content. So I think it's a really exciting time. I think it is a golden age. I think this pandemic, from a media buying and just digital marketing strategy perspective, has completely turned things on its head. And, you know, as much as I hate the idea of the pandemic, and I'm an introvert, so I don't mind being at home as much, I do think going outside of the house, even once we have a vaccine that is administered to many people and people are able to leave in a safer way from their homes and go and interact in the world, I still think people are going to be maybe slow to do that, because I think they're enjoying the experiences that they are developing for themselves as a result of the past 9 months. And I think that they are going out there and exploring other content streaming services. And I think it was extremely smart of HBO Max to say that they're going to release all their big pictures and everything, all their content in 2021 on the streaming service. Because they're just going to get more people to buy. I love The Mandalorian. I love Disney Plus. I love especially during the holiday season, the plethora of content, holiday content that's available on the.
I was just gonna.
Yeah, it's great. I'm loving it right now.
I was just going to mention that. You know,
I've invested more in my home viewing experience between internet upgrades. I do still have TVs. I have 4 TVs in my house, and I'm a single person household. So I am one of those high, you know, those people who watch. And, you know, probably circa 2013, I became a cord cutter. But in 2017, after the current administration took office, I became obsessed with watching news. So I became a subscriber of YouTube TV. And so now that used to be a $30 a month subscription. It's now $70 a month. And I'm sitting here thinking, but I don't want to give up, you know, some of the cable news channels and stuff. So I'm keeping it. And, you know, when I think about all the streaming services that I subscribe to, I'm not planning on getting rid of any of them anytime soon, especially with the pandemic still going strong into 2021. So I think these are, it is a golden age. People are exploring more. And I think, like I said, what I'm most excited about is just all of the idea of all the data that these platforms are collecting on you, and seeing what kinds of content you are watching, and being able to make recommendations and even foster that into how they are creating content. If they know these audiences are
feature
super
programming
to this, yeah, they're like, okay, let's create more of that. We can see it's effective. So it's awesome.
Absolutely. No, I think, Heather, what you just touched on, I love those themes of data, right? So the data viewing from a couple of years ago, they recognized that people were watching the Hallmark Channel and crazy, goofy, corny Christmas movies. You fast forward now to this year, I guarantee you, a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, they said, okay, here's what people like. This is what the data is showing. Okay, Netflix, we are going to queue up about 12 different holiday movies.
Yeah.
Country Christmas, Christmas in the Country, Prince for Christmas, Christmas Princess, the Christmas Princess Switch. And here's what I've noticed as I've gone through all these, every single one of them is 1 hour and 26 minutes long.
Yeah.
No joke.
Yeah.
They're 1 hour and 26 minutes, period.
Yeah.
Right? Each single one. They know exactly how these are structured and laid out. And, you know, they always feature a moped, right? Some small, cute kid. There's always a dog, right? There's always kind of this transplant. Big city girl goes to down home. I mean, there's all this stuff, and it's perfectly tailored, beautifully scripted, I think driven by the data from a couple of years ago. And it's interesting, Heather, you said that you were a cord cutter, but my hunch is that you probably may be close to or already there of spending more on streaming than you did on cable. So you're not really a cord cutter,
anymore.
Right? So you might be a cord cutter, but you're not a content cutter.
No.
And you're a content splicer, right? So you're actually adding more content into your house. And so what I also think too is where, you know, with Marvel and Disney, especially, I'm a huge Marvels fan. And now as a fan, my golden age of Marvel is coming to play because their television programming or their series programs versus the feature. And I think that's probably even where the distinction will be made. No one is going to say, well, there's television and there's movies. There are series and there are feature right? That's really the distinction. I don't think that people are going to go to movies to where, hey, let's go to the movies. They're going to seek out the content.
Yep.
And wherever the content happens to be is where they're going to go. It might be in a movie theater if it's the only place it's going to be, or it could be in your living room, right? So I think that that's going to be interesting. I would ask you, Kyle, as you start seeing the mad dash to create great content in the upcoming years, where do you see something like Univision playing that role in terms of aggregating data, perhaps informing, guiding consumers to the content that they're looking for?
Well, one of the, I think the big reasons behind our AVOD launch, is not only to provide content for, for Hispanics, but also for data and to really, narrow down and target as, for the exact consumer that we want to be reaching. And, and you look at we have a, 40% partnership with Televisa, and they still provide much of our content, but we also own 55% of the impressions out there of all soccer. So, we also have news. We have a lot of content to offer our clients. But just looking as a whole, I almost look at good content as almost like a commodity now. It's almost a requirement, but also, ubiquitous, because everybody has good content these days. But certain, once in a life, generational shows can actually lift it, like, and almost debunk that. You look at Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones took HBO to a whole nother level, and you're seeing The Mandalorian. I have never watched it, but almost everyone I know that has Disney, they absolutely love it. And
Heather's like, I'm out. Out.
Well, I think it goes back, and not to give a plug, but Bob Iger's vision of what he saw Disney as is, he acquired the rights of Marvel, worked out a deal with Steve Jobs and Pixar, Lucasfilms. I mean, he built, such a great, viewing experience. Imagine what that IP would be worth these days and what companies are paying. So, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's like where it's just great content, but like I said, everybody has great content. Everybody's got a show. There's a lot of money being thrown out there to very good creative showrunners that are producing great content, and it's just going to make it more competitive. And I love that term you used about, not a cord cutter, but what did you say again, Chris?
Splicer, content splicer.
I said she isn't a cord cutter. She's not a content cutter. Now she's a content splicer.
But and you look at Netflix and the directors and artists that they are acquiring. They have David Fincher. They have Ryan Murphy. These are A-list showrunners and creators. So I think Netflix and Disney, they're giving these artists free reign to do whatever they want, and they don't have some of the studios might have kind of been holding them back. So maybe they feel like they have more freedom and they can kind of create more content that they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a really interesting, and Kyle, you had mentioned that about Christopher Nolan in a widely publicized line, right? Which is, again, part of the media landscape is challenging, because if you say something, it lives forever. Where he said, I woke up, or I went to bed being an A-list director for the greatest movie studio in the world, and I woke up making stuff for the worst streaming service in the world, right? And he said that, not me. And it's a thing where it's like, I think that's probably maybe a perception, on Wednesday, December 16th. I would argue that on May 20th, 2021 or 2022, it's a totally different phrase. It's I get the freedom to make whatever the heck I want, and it's just going to be distributed in some place that I want.
And more people are going to watch it. He needs to drop his ego about it and redirect his ego to the reality that more people are going to be exposed to his stuff. He should be jazzed about that.
It's interesting, Heather, because so here's what we do know from history, and we're going to wrap this up and ask some questions. There's a lot of conflict and tension and a lot of movement in the space right now. But here's what we know from history. In the 1500s, Italy was an absolute political mess, a political mess. Yet it created the Renaissance and the greatest flourishing of art in the Western culture at that time. Meanwhile, up the road and it was very safe and all good in the Netherlands. Not much happened, right? A cuckoo clock, right? So I think that right now we're in such a turbulent time in the country as we figure out our identity. Creating art and creating content is an outlet and a vehicle that artists are going to create. People want to watch that and be distracted. I think the golden age of media and the golden age of content, I think it's going to be around for a while.
I'm excited for it, despite all the other crap we're dealing with. I'm excited for it. But
that's right, especially if you watch a Prince for Christmas, a Prince for Christmas royal wedding, and a Prince for Christmas royal baby. That's the trifecta.
You have daughters, so maybe that's where you're learning it. I'm more excited, like you said, about the Queen's Gambit, the Mandalorian, and some of the other things that are going to be coming out on Disney over the next couple of weeks. Some feature films and stuff that are really exciting that I'm jazzed about. But yeah, picking up to 11.
Yeah, it is, and what I find so wonderful about Disney and what they're going to be doing, especially, and then we can answer questions, is because I'm such a huge fan, seeing how those episodic pushes, whether it's WandaVision, Winter Soldier, or Hawkeye, blow into and fuse into the feature films that come through. So there's actually just a general media push, and who knows, Kyle, one day you might see the Mandalorian. But what I think you'll find too is that as new theatrical releases are being pushed out, they will echo and touch on what people are seeing on the episodic content coming through.
It helps too, Chris. They own the IP on it, so you can almost do like a prequel. You have so many options that you can do when you own your own IP, and you can keep creating off of characters, and so you can just keep building a library, which I'm sure that was the vision that Bob Iger and his team had, almost 5-6 years ago.
Yep, absolutely. All right, John, we are at the 20+ mark. So do we got any questions from the audience?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We've got a few questions. I'd like to run them past the group here. Question number 1. What's your prediction of how the concept of whenever and whatever content will affect linear TV in the next 5 years?
Kyle.
I mean, I still think, I still think that, good content, like we kind of said before, will always, stand out, and people will always gravitate to what they want to watch. Whether, like Heather said, she loves watching news, she's going to kind of keep gravitating toward news. You have people that love watching movies, they're going to gravitate toward movies. And so, I think you still have, people that down at their core, they know exactly what they want, and it feels good when they turn on. They might watch local news, they might like cable news. So they might like watching still, their favorite shows on TNT. They might just only watch shows on Netflix. So I still think it really comes down to the consumer and what they want to watch.
Great, thanks. Here's another one for you guys. How is the payout of producers and creators different if they are forced to go direct to streaming versus theater first?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't think anybody knows. I mean,
I think I know like the Warner's just paid, I know for Wonder Woman 2, I think that Gal Gadot and the director both got a sizable bonus, but I don't know if the production crew, and I don't know if they did. I don't know, Heather, what do you think?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know, but I feel like the attitude towards creating for these streaming services or for things that are going to not be shown in the theater and stuff, I think it's, like I said earlier, it's going to bring more eyeballs, more exposure, and I think it's actually going to help them get more money on maybe the production side, definitely the director and the talent side, because what they're doing is going to be seen by more people. They're not going to be fighting for those dollars or pushing out, performances and not being sure whether or not it's a sure bet or anything. Like they're going to have more exposure and stuff, and so I think it's actually going to benefit them.
I think also the company will be making more money. You think about, you have 80 million, 90 million subscribers per month paying $6, and that's constant cash flow coming in. That's not, you're putting $200 million behind a movie and it only makes 150. So now you have just a constant flow of cash flow that you can kind of keep investing into your content. So yeah, Heather, I agree with you on that end.
Yeah, that's I think a very insightful take on that, is that the constant cash flow that SaaS companies are used to, or e-commerce companies are used to, now media companies, or more media content provider companies, or entertainment companies, whereas in the past they would kind of bank all of their year's fortunes on one or two big movies that are going to come out, and the blockbusters in the summer is going to save the studio for the next year, and generate the cash to invest in more projects. But now, if they're able to just constantly have a cash flow coming in, now these providers can create their own content from the cash flow coming in. So here's what's actually is ironic. So Netflix got a lot of cash from non-Netflix programs and movies that they were streaming. So those studios fueled the investment that Netflix could make for their own content development.
Yeah.
I just think it's a fascinating thing.
All right, here's one. This is a fun one. Let's go through. We got time for one more. Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO Max. With so many streaming options, how many streaming subscriptions are too many for one household?
How many kids do you have?
I will tell you, I saw research the other day and it said there's 2.76 streaming devices per home right now.
That's a good, you also have a lot of people that share passwords. So you might, I'm logged on to Hulu. You use my Hulu password, and then I can use your HBO Max password. So you have a lot of friends trading passwords, and I'll give you my Disney Plus, but you give me your other password, say for Peacock. So you have a lot of friends exchanging, their login. So until the firewall, they really are getting stringent on the firewall. I can see that kind of continuing as well.
I'm kind of biased in answering this. I have Amazon Prime Video. I've got Netflix, YouTube TV, HBO Max,
Disney.
and Disney. I've got 5, and I'm a single person household. I might be the outlier in this though, but to me that's not too many. I use all of those.
So, and here's another take, John, on that is, the question is, at what point in time are you asking the question? So I was considering doing a Fubo subscription to watch one football game. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Even though it's a free trial for 7 days, I'm not going to do that. Same thing with some other streaming services. I'm thinking, gosh, I want to get the free trial for HBO Max on December 25th so we could watch Wonder Woman 1984, and then I'll cancel HBO Max. And then maybe bring it up or go to my neighbor's house because he'll get HBO Max and I'll watch Dune at his house, right? So I think that it could be that you get to this place again where you seek out the content you want to watch and figure out how you're going to watch that. I think a staple, something like, I don't know anyone who doesn't have Netflix or Amazon Prime. It's true. I don't know anyone who doesn't have that. I think that, and that's why what Disney Plus, I think, had done so smartly with the right kind of anxiety, right? Because they saw subscriptions surge when Hamilton came out, and then subscriptions drop. But now with the Marvel slate of episodic content of all those characters, and there's so many characters and comic books and stories that they have, a lifetime of content that they can put together. I also think that's probably why they wanted to push this slate out so quickly, to recapture the momentum from Hamilton, to recapture to take advantage of the momentum from Mandalorian, right? So, to Kyle's point earlier about, great content, and people will be drawn into great content. The job now for these streaming services, who now blend as studios, call them studiums. Strudios. We'll call them Strudios, the streaming studios, right? The job now is this constant development of new content all the time, which is great for artists, and for fans like Heather. It's great for her too.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, Chris, Heather, Kyle, awesome job today, guys. Awesome job. Thank you so much. Folks, your next opportunity to attend a live online Take 20 is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. That's right. We're actually going to make it into 2021. God knows we need to be there.
So close.
It's so close. This will be part 3 of our 3-part series, subscription pricing conversions. What does it mean? Please visit the pdmi.com/take-20, pdmi.com/take-20 to check out the upcoming schedule and register to attend today. Thanks again for joining us today, folks. Happy holidays to everyone, and all the best in the year to come.
Bye. Take care. Happy holidays.